What's up guys, this is Ray and welcome to Asian Filmist. And it's still April and we're going to keep talking about superhero films. And today we're going to be talking about the 1991 live action adaptation of the Guyver. This live action isn't actually a Japanese movie, it's actually a Hollywood movie. And it's directed by Screaming Mad George and Steve Wang, and it stars Mark Hamill and Jack Armstrong. And it's a live-action adaptation of the classic superhero manga written by Takaya Yoshiki. And I happen to be a huge fan of the original manga, of every single anime adaptation that's come out to date. I remember watching this movie as a child. I think I've seen this live action first. I didn't really know at the time that it was a manga. And because it's an adaptation of an anime and manga, I felt it was definitely appropriate to talk about it with you guys here. And also, it's a work that utilizes a lot of techniques and tropes that were often utilized in tokusatsu superhero TV shows, like Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, Ultraman. But whether it does everything so well, that's what we're going to talk about today. So the story of the Guyver, it's about this kid named Sean, and he stumbles upon this kind of machine originating from outer space called the Guyver Union, and he is able to equip it, and he's able to utilize this kind of bio-enhanced super armor that he uses to fight against the Kronos Corporation, this, your typical evil bad guy corporation bent on world domination, and Kronos, the Kronos Corporation utilizes these enhanced super soldiers called zoonoids, which are just giant monsters that carry out the corporation's bidding. It's kind of your basic story of good versus evil, and granted, the original anime had a lot more twists and turns, but this Hollywood adaptation, it did its best in trying to take all those story elements, not all the characters, but a few of those characters, and transplant them into the story. But when it comes to positives that were in the Guyver, the suit designs, the creature effects, and the visual effects that were utilized, granted, I think the movie as a whole didn't have too high of a budget, but I felt that it was definitely spent well when it came to producing the creatures and also the suits. And that being said, those are the only positives I have to say about the Guyver, and there are a lot more negatives I have to say. First of which, the acting. Acting was horrible. I think everyone that was cast in this movie are pretty much either amateurs or some guys they found off the street, or even some people that were just getting started in their career. All that save for Mark Hamill and David Gale. Mark Hamill played this detective who's kind of investigating the Kronos Corporation, and David Gale is the main bad guy. I felt that everyone else except these two didn't do well at all when it came to the acting. And granted, David Gale, the only reason I say his performance was fine is because he hammed up his performance to the max. He went all out as kind of your sinister villain type of character, and he didn't look back. Aside from that, the dialogue was horrible. There's a lot of no, or let her go, or I am the Guyver, and it just kind of repeats, and it's just not entertaining at all. And the tone of the film was all over the place. I mean, the original source material, it was dark, it was kind of depressing, it was bloody and violent, it was amazing. But then this live action movie, it kind of has those elements of bloody violence, but at the same time it tries to be this weird, awkward comedy. Like I mentioned, the dialogue was really awkward. It's even more awkward when it tries to be utilized for comedic purposes. I mean, not only was the comedy awkward, but also the timing. The timing wasn't good at all. It wasn't well planned. And I think the comedy, in the story, there are moments where, it's meant to be this action-packed moment, but then it kind of cuts out of that in exchange for a gag, in exchange for a cheap gag. And it just didn't flow well at all. And the music, it was super cheesy. I guess it's it's a reflection of the times. I mean, it was the 90s, and it's the kind of music you can expect from a cheap 90s action film. So, maybe at the time it was alright, but then looking back on it, it was so cheesy. And not only the music, but the sound editing, and even the action scenes. Honestly, I think I can forgive a movie with a bad story, with bad acting, if the action choreography was all right. But that's not the case with the Guyver. The action was kind of boring. It didn't really do well in making the Guyver superhero unique. They didn't really play around with it. It's just kind of like a standard cookie cutter bad guys beat up the monsters kind of story, and I don't know, it was disappointing, especially coming from a fan of the original work. And not only that, but I feel like 90% or even 95% of the film was shot at night or in the dark, and at times it was pretty difficult to see because they just didn't utilize lighting well at all. And lastly, the world building was really poorly done. In the beginning, you get like this crawl that gives background on the story that, in the past, like, aliens created the world and they made the Zoonoids, they made the Guyvers, and they had all this hype building up towards this world that we're about to dive into. But because of budget, because of resources, we didn't get any of that. So it just kind of, everything just got kind of left hanging. And so all that being said, overall, what did I think of the Guyver? It's definitely not a live action adaptation that gives justice to the original work. And in the end, it felt like a direct-to-DVD movie, and even all of that, a low-budget B movie. And you know what? This film gathered enough interest to produce a second movie, and that one was way better than this movie, especially if you're a fan of Tokusatsu superhero works. But this first movie, it definitely felt low budget, felt cheap, and it just wasn't really well executed. Now, I don't really recommend the Guyver, but if you want something cheesy and 90s kind of action flicks, then maybe this will be worth your time. Granted, don't expect to be entertained by it from beginning to end. And whatever you do, try not to refer to the poster or DVD box art before you watch this movie. It's really deceptive in the sense that it showcases Mark Hamill on the cover, and it's made to make you believe that Mark Hamill is the Guyver, but he's not the Guyver. It's actually Jack Armstrong. I think this might have been his only movie or one of his only movies, but yeah, don't go into this movie thinking that Mark Hamill is the Guyver. He is not. He's actually a minor character. It's an example of deceptive marketing. They're trying to sell the movie based off a big name in the story. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the 90s adaptation of the Guyver. What did you guys think, and what kind of questions did you guys have? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Follow on Facebook and Twitter, and by all means, support Asian Filmist through Patreon. It really helps the channel a lot, plus you can take advantage of some fine perks. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you all again in the next video. Take it easy.